Hey guys, it's the wonderful Mr. Woods here, bringing you another gameplay commentary, this time featuring Vel'koz in the mid lane. So Vel'koz just came out yesterday, and I wanted to get a video out just to give my first impressions and talk about what I feel about this champion, how he fits into the current meta, and what you can expect if you pick him up. In this matchup, I'm playing against LeBlanc in the mid lane, as you can see. I start with Doran's Ring and 2 health pots. Those do become biscuits because I do run that utility mastery. I did buy the skin for Vel'koz, which I think is really awesome. It's probably the best skin to come out in a while, a starting skin for a champion. I do really like Vel'koz so far. I've only played him for a couple games, but I already think he's a really good champion. I think he's not overpowered. He might be one of the first champions to come out in a while who I don't necessarily think is overpowered. I think he is strong, but I think his lack of mobility probably gives your opponents enough of an edge where I wouldn't call him overpowered. He's very easy to gank. He doesn't have any escapability. He does have a little bit of CC, but I mean they're all skill shots. So I think he's at a good starting point right now, and I don't think he's going to get nerfed anytime soon. So for those of you that worry, oh, I don't want to pick a champion up right away because when he comes out because he's going to get nerfed right away, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about that. I mean, his damage ratios may get nerfed a little bit eventually, but I don't see this champion changing too much in the near future. So to talk about in here, I've been sitting back the entire laning phase because I don't want her to be able to jump onto me, but eventually it does happen. She jumps onto me, puts a ton of damage on me, and that's what LeBlanc does. So here she's zoning me out. I'm trying to stay away. I know she's trying to jump in and kill me, but she does have her ignite up. And she lands all of her skill shots, and boom, there I go. And that's one of the dangers of playing even a little bit aggressively against a LeBlanc. But you're going to see I'm going to come back and I'm going to have an okay game. So to talk about Vel'koz's skills, his Q is a line nuke that hits the first target and then splits into 2 separate little orbs that explode at a 90-degree angle. Some people might like to max this first, and I personally, if you can hit it, I think you should definitely max it first because it does do a ton of damage, and the cooldown's not that terrible on it. Some people might like to max W for the wave clear. W, as you just saw right there, is a lion skill shot that does go through all enemies hit, and then there's a second part of it that explodes. You can save up to 2 charges of this, and as the cooldown goes down, a charge will appear, and then it goes on cooldown again, and another charge will appear, so you can use 2 charges of it in quick succession. And I think this is a good skill. I think it's good for pushing the lane, but it's sort of hard to, in the laning phase, get that to hit as far as poke goes. So I wouldn't necessarily max that, just because if you do hit them with the first charge of it, they're usually not going to get hit by the second charge, and the second charge I feel does a lot more damage. And that could just be my perspective on it, but I just feel like the second charge does more damage. I don't feel like the first charge does that much, and I don't feel like the ability does that much damage unless it's fully leveled up. So personally, I would start with Q. E is a skill shot again, and basically what it does is it's going to go to an area, and after a brief delay, it's going to knock your opponent up. This is a really good skill to combo with the rest of your skills, because if you can hit that and your W at the same time, they're going to be knocked up for long enough where they're going to be hit by that second charge of the W going off. So that's definitely a skill you need to have if you're going to try to all-in somebody. And there you can see the Q explodes outwards and I don't hit her. If you're good with that, you can launch it off to the side, and then you can detonate it prematurely in order to hit your opponent. So that's good. And you can see right here, he's really good at pushing. That's one of the strengths of this champion. His mana costs are pretty low. I still do build the Chalice on him just because I like it. I think it's a good... and there as soon as she jumps onto me, I immediately all-in her. And as you saw, his ultimate is a line skill shot as well. It's called, God, what is it called? Tectonic, oh no, excuse me. Lifeform Disintegration Ray. And he channels a ray that follows a cursor for 2.5 seconds, dealing magic damage up to a total of 500, and slows enemies hit by 20% for 1 second. And this adds stacks of organic deconstruction, which is your passive. You can also cancel it, sort of like Wukong's ultimate, by recasting, by hitting that R button again. His passive, I haven't talked about that yet. It applies stacks. So it'll apply a stack for any ability that you hit on them, and in the third stack it will deal extra true damage. So those do wear off eventually, sort of like stacks of silver bolts, kind of like Vayne's ability. You need to hit 3 abilities in order to get that extra true damage. So if you think of it sort of like silver bolts, it's pretty similar to that. So the way I build Vel'koz is I try to get a chalice early, and then I'll build from there depending on how I'm doing in lane. If I go back on my second back and I can afford to pick up a needlessly large rod, I might just go for that if I'm snowballing. But most of the time I'm just going to build right into an Athene's. And it also depends if you're getting blue buff. That's definitely helpful. So I feel like this champion can put out a ton of damage in a small space of time, which makes him an excellent champion in my opinion. The last hitting, as you can see here, I'm not having too much trouble last hitting with just my auto attacks. The auto attacks are pretty crisp and pretty quick. So someone like LeBlanc, it's going to be a lot harder for her to auto attack in CS. So she's probably going to have to use more abilities. And I'm not too worried about using abilities because I have a blue buff and I have Chalice. So, and there you can see that was my E, Tectonic Disruption. I just knocked her up. Just put a little harass out on her. And as you can see quickly, I have 53 CS and she has 27 CS. So Vel'koz is really good at CSing. He pushes the lane rather quickly, and especially against someone like LeBlanc, who you are in danger of getting bursted down. But what I'm doing to counter that, and what I think more people should do, is instead of going for Sorc shoes like you usually would on any mage, go for the God, why am I so stupid? Go for those Merc Treads, and you get a little bit of magic resist. And I mean, magic resist really counters LeBlanc. So at this point in the game, I already have 83 magic resist, and once I pick up those Merc Treads, I think I'll have a little bit more. So it really counters her because she has to be able to burst you in pretty much one burst, or she's shit out of luck. Another thing you do to counter LeBlanc is I like to take Barrier instead of Ignite. And I definitely like to take Barrier on this guy just because there's not a lot of situations where you're going to ignite the enemy. You usually want to be out of range of them and in range of yourself. So right here, she goes in to try to stun me and use all her abilities on me, and I just immediately use my Lifeform Disintegration Ray, and I'm able to take her down rather quickly. So you can see, just with a Chalice and a Doran's Ring, my damage is already pretty crazy. Not that the Chalice gives you any damage, but just with those masteries that I have in a Doran's Ring, I'm able to do a ton of damage to her with those passive stats of organic deconstruction. So I'm doing pretty well in lane so far. I think I'm 2-1. I do pick up those Merc Treads on this back, and I also pick up my an Amplifying Tome, and I'm going to be building that eventually into Athene's Unholy Grail, obviously. That's going to give me cooldowns, cooldown reduction, which is really good on Vel'koz. The ability to spam your skills pretty much non-stop is great because you want to get those passive stacks. So that's really helpful. And here I do what I can to try to get her off of Vlad, but he just walked up into my lane and he was just asking to get bursted, and he did. I don't know what he was doing down here exactly, but... And here I don't exactly realize how much damage this Fiddle's going to do to me. It's pretty surprising, actually, and then he ults and fears. So I just decided to flash out. Don't really feel like dying. And even though I do have all that magic resist, that his ultimate just does a ton of damage. And unfortunately, I don't get the assist there, and Udyr ends up dying. But it's whatever. We got the kill, so worth, right? So another thing about Vel'koz is he is one of the champions that you are going to need a lot of good positioning. You're going to need to play him. It's a sort of, if you think sort of a Veigar type champion, if Veigar is caught out of position, he does not have a way to escape, and there's really nothing he can do to get away. So I would definitely recommend try to work on your positioning and try to always be in the back line and never be caught out of position with, you know, even one or two of the enemy champions that can just kind of jump onto you. I don't feel like he'll do very well against champions that can jump onto him and stick to him, such as maybe like a Wukong or a Pantheon, someone like that. I'm not telling you this because if you are up against a Wukong or a Pantheon, don't pick Vel'koz. I'm just saying you really need to have good positioning and you need to always be in the right place. So here I pick up the second part of my Athenes. I can't get the full thing yet because unfortunately I was chunked out of lane there before I could really CS or do anything. But the game's still going fairly well. I'm ahead of LeBlanc in CS by an absolute ton. She does have 3 kills, unfortunately, but I am sure she's not snowballing as hard as she'd like to be. So we're just going to continue to sit in the mid lane and CS, and I don't feel like Vel'koz is much of a roamer. He seems like more of a, kind of sit and push the lane and just basically spam his abilities. And then I feel like he's a very, very good team fight champion. If you have good positioning, you can just sit in the back and lay down just a ton of damage over the whole enemy team. And here I do roam down, and I pop my ultimate. He pops barrier, so I just go in, clean it up. And he almost gets me, but I'm able to pick him off. And luckily for us, there's no LeBlanc here to clean it up. So I pick up a couple of kills, push down the tower. Gotta get those objectives. And then I'm going to go back and probably get my Athenes at this point. I think, yeah, we're going to go for LeBlanc. Now, watch what this Udyr does. Because this is exactly what you don't want to do against LeBlanc. If you're that low health, it doesn't matter if she sees 3 or 4 champions coming. She's just going to burst you down real quick. I mean, she did sort of a bad job, but it still worked out for her. And unfortunately, I went for the clone there. Wasn't able to get her, but right here I'm just going to hit a sweep. This is some of the cool stuff you can do with his skill shots. Right there. So I hit that Q, I hit it again so it'll split apart and smacks right into her, and I pick up the kill. And a red buff. Not really sure if Vel'koz can benefit that much from red buff, but it's nice to have anyway, and it's nice to take it off of the enemy team. So here I'm going to go back. Pick up my Athenes. Let's see what else I pick up. After Athenes, I feel like he's fairly standard as far as build goes. I would go probably Athenes, Deathcap, and then Void Staff, depending on the situation. Now, in this situation, I feel like they have a lot of magic damage, so I'm already pretty set. I have 103 MR. But it is good to pick up a Zhonya's just for the invulnerability, even if they don't have a ton of AD. Just because, since positioning is so important on Vel'koz, if you get caught out of position, just to have the ability to pop the Zhonyas, go invulnerable for a couple seconds and get your cooldowns back, can be really helpful and could be, the difference between life and death. So I see a bunch of them clustering in the bottom lane. Our team's kind of not really going in on them, but it looks like they might be going in a minute. So I think I'm gonna start heading down there. See if I can maybe clean up a few kills. And let's see what we do here. So I just pop everything I have, which is, it's really unfortunate because if you pop what you have and you pop your Lifeform Disintegration Ray in the wrong direction, it's sort of hard to reposition it. So it says it follows your cursor, but it follows your cursor very slowly. So make sure you're set up to the exact direction that you want to point it before you use it. Because if they have the ability to dodge or get out of the way very quickly, it's going to be wasted. And that is on a fairly short cooldown. As you can see, it's already going to be up in less than a minute. Especially with that 20% CDR from Athene's. That's another reason I like to build Athene's, is because the cooldown reduction on that is very good, and the base damage on it is already pretty insane, so you don't really need to build the extra damage right away. And as you can see, I did pick up a blasting one last time I was in base to build towards the Deathcap. And unfortunately, I don't see Lucian coming behind me. I do everything I can to get him off me. I think I might end up getting away. Do have to blow my flash, but it's not a big deal. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Positioning on Vel'koz. If you're caught out of position even a little bit, flash is really your only escape. So you need to be really careful. And here I go back to base. Don't think I really pick anything up other than a couple potions. I don't really have the money for needlessly large rod. So, as you can see, this game's almost over. I think it's going to start snowballing even harder in a minute. And as you can see, the entire team's clustering around mid. And if I wouldn't have had to go back, because I got caught out of position, I could have been there. But unfortunately, I had to go back to base because I was very low in health. But my team is smart enough not to go in with without all the members of the team there. Blitzcrank puts himself in a really bad position and just gets bursted down. Fiddle silences me. That's another thing with your ult. It is a channeled ability, so if you get silenced, if you get knocked out of it, you are going to die. So I'm able to pick up 2 kills right there. I know I'm going to die, and the second part of my W picks up Lucian. So I get a triple kill there, which is great for me. I'm able to pick up that needlessly large rod, and I believe I do sell the Dorans. I don't normally do it, but it's such a huge power spike for Vel'koz that I felt like selling the Doran's ring for Rabadon's was worth it. And yep, I do sell the Doran's and I pick up Rabadon's. So I'm 8-2 right now. I'm very powerful. I've got a decent amount of CS, better than anyone on either team. Not very great at 20 minutes to have only 113 CS, but as long as I'm keeping up and I'm doing better than everyone on their team, then I feel perfectly fine with that, especially with those 8 kills and the roam that I was able to do. So I'm pretty happy with that. So here, Udyr's going to let me pick up this blue buff. As you can see, I do a ton of damage. I'm able to pick that up really quickly. Blue buff is amazing on Vel'koz. It allows you to spam your spells even more. And it's definitely, if you can get it, if your jungler will give it to you, it definitely gives you a big advantage in lane as well. And I do love the ability to cast. You can cast your W while moving, and that is very advantageous. And we can't see them over the wall at this point, so we don't know if they're there or not. She did just use her ultimate, so I'm not really worried about getting bursted down by her. I am worried about getting pulled by Blitzcrank, so I want to wait for the minions. And it looks like my entire this is something you don't want to do. As you can see right now, 3 of my team are going down to kill this Lucian, when there's a tower right here that could be easily taken down if all 4 of us would have been on it. That tower was going to go down regardless, and yeah, they might pick up the kill on Lucian, but that's not really worth it. You'd like to counter with a tower if it's possible. And here, Blitzcrank flash grabs, and I just dodge out of the way. Thank God. Not that he really had anyone with him to follow up on it, but... And here I knew which one was the clone. I went for it, got my life form disintegration ray off, and absolutely melted LeBlanc. He grabs me, and I say, hey, thanks for grabbing me. And I kill him. Here, Fiddle. Just knock him up, smack him around. And Vlad picks up the kill. And now we're able to take down this tower. And I believe that should be the surrender vote coming out right about now. I end up 10-2. The next item I would have picked up, depending on how much MR they had, was probably Void Staff, since I don't have any from my boots. So that's the gameplay, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and favorite this video, and if you'd subscribe if you would like to see more content on my channel. I hope you enjoyed seeing the new champion Vel'koz. Have a great day.